Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for coming. We are delighted to have a full panel here again this afternoon. I know some of you also came to our event this morning, and this event will also be live streamed both on the SPREP Facebook and through PIDF's own Facebook. So we'll be sure to spread this to the online community around the Pacific who aren't able to join us today. My name is James Ellsmoor, and I'm Director of Solar Head of State. We're an NGO working internationally with SIDS countries on advancing the mission of solar energy. I'll just briefly introduce my organization, and then we'll invite the panel each to offer their own interventions. Solar Head of State started almost 10 years ago and has done several projects with various countries to install high-profile solar panel installations. The idea behind these projects is that by installing solar on prominent government buildings, it sends a very important message, both within the country on the importance of solar, but also internationally, and particularly for countries in the Pacific Islands on the leadership that they're undertaking for renewable energy. The project started in the Maldives under President Mohamed Nasheed, who I'm happy to say will also be here next week back at COP. We then have also done projects in St. Lucia on Government House and Jamaica on the Office of the Prime Minister. And each of these projects has been accompanied by various public relations initiatives to ensure that the role of solar energy in the new economy is made clear. Now I'll invite François Martel, Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Development Forum, to give a brief discussion on the project that we'll be undertaking in the Pacific region.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome to this side event. As you can see, it's really to showcase a project for the Pacific nations in terms of taking leadership in renewable energy and showing the world basically that we, the Pacific leaders, are actually walking the talk, literally, by moving towards solar energy and renewable energy in the Pacific Islands. Interestingly, I met James at what we call in Samoa the talo, or the Tokelau Affairs liaison office when I was a bit younger, but I was actually the climate change advisor to the government of Tokelau at the time. And it's interesting that following this encounter, we actually developed a project proposal to actually solarize the head of state's residence of all the Pacific Island countries that are members of the PIDF and beyond. And so this proposal was prepared about 2 years ago. We've been working on proposing this to several development partners. And I think there are some difficulties to understand the concept of the role of a leader in a small Pacific Island country, and that the impact that this will have over time, and particularly in engaging and providing the time for a campaign. So let me very briefly give you I'm just trying to get to the next slide. It was working this morning. No. Okay. So the PIDF, the Pacific Islands Development Forum, is really a platform for green growth and the blue economy in the context of the Agenda 2030. In short, we're not a technical agency, but we're a space to catalyze, mobilize, and mainstream action for sustainable development and poverty eradication. We're an action-oriented platform. We're mandated to mainstream green growth, and this comes part of it, with climate action and adapted solutions for island resilience, which also include solar energy. So we provide a framework for bringing together the expertise of the private sector, the normative leadership of the public sector, and the successful delivery mechanism of civil society. And this is why we embark in this particular project, because it's a project focused on leadership, partnership, and innovation. So the project itself is essentially to facilitate the installation of solar energy infrastructure to power the residents of head of states of 11 PIDF member countries and the PIDF headquarters to promote renewable energy in the Pacific. The countries are basically all the PIDF member states. We have also the Pacific Islands Development Forum Secretariat itself. And it's a project that is meant to last for 2 years. And the start date for this was June 2018, but we're actually still in the process of signing the project document, which will probably start on the 1st of January 2019. We expect to complete all the 11 installations in 2020, and the funding commitment provided by our partners, the India UN Partnership Fund, is for $1.1 million over that 2-year period of time. And of course, our member states are partners, as well as the Solar Head of State organization and the PIDF. Okay, I got it. So essentially, we're partnering with Solar Head of State, who has the technical expertise and has already done this work in several locations in island settings. It's a non-profit organization. It was formed by a team of solar entrepreneurs, solar energy, but also social entrepreneurs, working with governments to demonstrate leadership in the implementation of renewable energy and sustainable energy agenda in the islands, particularly in SIDS. And the idea is to create really public savings through the installation of solar photovoltaic power systems on key government buildings. The country's leadership is given first-hand experience with the proven benefits of renewable energy and technologies in particular. As you can see on this second picture in the middle, this is the team from the SHOS engineering team paying a visit to the president of the government of the Republic of Fiji, His Excellency Georgi Conrote. And of course, we do this in partnership with the private sector partners who provide pro bono a lot of the technical equipment that is actually required. So procure, construct, provide project management for the system. SHOS will also train the local staff, the laborers, the volunteers, who will assist with the construction, the operation, and the maintenance of the system. And the idea is that the projects are done locally by local laborers. Now, by bringing the global expertise in the design and installation of the solar system to each project, SHOS will actually facilitate the transfer of these critical skills and knowledge to the Pacific countries. It will focus on the installation of solar energy infrastructure to power the residents, and each system in itself becomes a demonstration project for the rest of the country. And this is a really important element of the overall concept itself of the project. It can be used to engage the general public, and it will be used for developing a full campaign that SHOS is calling a solar challenge with the youth of each of the different countries while the installation is put in place through an effective media campaign and community outreach. So it's not only a demonstration project, it's a project that shows leadership by the leader of the country in putting solarization into effect and walk the talk. SHOS has a proven track record already. As indicated, these projects have been implemented in St. Lucia, in Jamaica, and in the Maldives, among others. And with this funding from the government of India, we are now able to push the entire envelope across all the Pacific Island countries, or most of them. So I think this presents the project as it is, and I will pass it on to my partners to talk about this a bit further.
Thank you very much, François, for that excellent overview. And I agree, I'm delighted that we're joined here by the delegates from Tokelau. Very nice to see you here. Tokelau is a very special place in my heart after I wrote an entire dissertation about the country's ambitious solar energy projects. Unfortunately, I had to do the entire thing from the comfort of Apia and Samoa because the logistics of getting to Tokelau are quite challenging, but I still have an ambition of visiting one day and hope we will have an opportunity to work there. I'd now like to briefly play a video from our most recent project in Jamaica, which I think really helps showcase the importance of these small projects and how a small investment in these can go a long way to showcasing ambitious SIDS renewable energy projects.
Small island developing states are usually very vulnerable to oil price movements and energy shocks. And therefore, I'm standing here leading a small island developing state, making the commitment to have my country energy secure by using renewables, in particular solar and wind.
We emit negligible greenhouse gases, but when the impact comes, we are most impacted. Prime Minister believes in what we are doing, believes that renewable energy has a role and a place in the Jamaica energy mix. A commitment has been made for transformation. At the Office of the Prime Minister,
The current policy of the government of Jamaica is that 30% of our electricity should be generated by renewables by the year 2030. I believe we can do better. So I have directed the government to increase our target from 30% to 50%.
We do have to look at our indigenous sources, the wind, the sun. It shows good leadership for the Office of the Prime Minister to be outfitted with solar panels which will reduce their consumption.
My team from Envisage Future Energy Limited are excited to be working at the Office of the Prime Minister. We are installing Solaria photovoltaic panels and N-phase microinverters.
Solar Head of State is an NGO that works internationally with countries around the world that are already embracing renewable energy. And Solar Head of State has previously worked in St. Lucia and the Maldives to do solar installations on prominent government buildings. Island countries like Jamaica, across the Caribbean, Pacific and Indian Oceans, are really embracing renewables as part of their wider efforts to decarbonize their economies. So this year we ran the Jamaica Solar Challenge in partnership with local youth groups, which invited young people from across Jamaica to create innovative communications projects to tell their communities about the benefits of renewable energy.
we are building the resilience of the country. We have to transform a number of our production processes, and the only way to do that is with renewables.
It takes leadership. It takes the leaders of the country to bring this awareness to their people. And now we're moving to ensure that renewables play an even greater part in our energy mix.
Okay, thank you very much. We couldn't do this project in the Pacific Islands without the support of the generous donor, the Government of India. So I'd now like to invite Mr. Rajesh Gawande from representing the Government of India to offer his intervention.
Secretary General Mr. Martel, my co-speakers on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. we thank the Pacific Island Development Forum for inviting India to this special event, and we are happy to be among friends here. India is currently undertaking a very ambitious climate action program to push for a transition of our large and growing economy to a cleaner energy mix. We are especially pushing the use of solar power both in our country and through international partnerships. This is already bringing down the unit costs substantially. You would have known that India's the per unit cost of solar in India has gone down substantially. I think it is almost it's a bit more cheaper than coal at the moment, but it is still gone down substantially. The ISA, or the International Solar Alliance, is an important example of these collaborative initiatives. The alliance seeks to scale up research and technology and mobilize revenues for solar power. We are happy that many of the countries represented here are already members of this Solar Alliance. More than 70 countries have joined this intergovernmental initiative since it was announced at COP21. India is also pursuing collaboration in renewable energy sector through various bilateral and other formats. We greatly value our growing partnership with the Pacific Island states. India is acutely familiar with the special concerns and constraints faced by small remote islands through experience with our islands. We are proud of our partnership with the Pacific Island states, including through the Forum for India-Pacific Island Cooperation. India is therefore happy to join the Pacific Island Development Forum and the UN Office for South-South Cooperation for the US $1 million Solar Head of States project for 11 partners from the India-UN Development Partnership Fund. May I mention that the very first project under this fund was launched on the occasion of Oceans Day last June in partnership with 7 Pacific Island states to set up climate early warning systems. The fund is also supporting 2 other solar power projects in the Pacific in Tuvalu and Marshall Islands. The fund also recently became the first source of funding for the Africa Adaptation Initiative, which is a regional effort in association with the UNDP. The fund was able to contribute last year to disaster recovery projects in some Caribbean and Pacific islands by committing resources at a very early stage. Till date, the fund has approved 33 projects in 34 countries in a year, and half of these are being established. The unique feature of the India-UN Development Partnership Fund is that it completely caters to the needs and priorities of the partner countries. Its modalities are flexible and transparent. There are absolutely no strings attached, and there are no conditionalities in operationalizing the fund. The India-UN Development Partnership Fund is our commitment to contributing to sustainable development in our partner countries completely according to their wishes. We look forward to working with the Pacific Island Development Forum in this important project that will contribute to initiatives for climate action that are much needed today. Thank you all.
And thank you so much, Mr. Gawande, for taking time out of your busy schedule in the negotiations to join us today. As mentioned, the International Solar Alliance is a very important initiative of India. And although they're not directly involved in this project, they're working extensively in the Pacific and with the Pacific Island Development Forum. I have to apologize to Mr. Shishir Seth that we only had 4 spaces up here, but don't worry, we have a very advanced technological system. So you can now take the podium and tell us more about your organization.
Thank you, His Excellency Secretary General, and respected dignitaries at the dais. We thank you for ISA inviting at this event. As you are aware, the International Solar Alliance is a treaty-based intergovernmental organization of 121 solar resource-rich countries lying fully or partially between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. And recently there is an assembly held, and the ISA Framework Agreement is being amended to enable all UN member countries to become eligible for ISA membership. As you are all aware, the ISA was launched by His Excellency Narendra Modi, Honorable Prime Minister of India, and His Excellency, former President of France, in the presence of Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of United Nations, at Paris, November 30, 2015, on the sidelines of the Conference of Parties 21 of the United Nations Framework Convention. Rapidly gaining acceptance, the ISA was ratified on December 6, 2017. The first summit and founding conference of the ISA, co-chaired by Honorable Prime Minister of India and the President of France, was held in New Delhi on March 11, 2018, and was attended by 25 heads of states and 10 ministerial representatives. The Paris Declaration establishes ISA as an alliance dedicated to the promotion of solar energy among its member countries. The ISA major objectives include deployment of 1,000 gigawatt of solar capacity and mobilization of US $1,000 billion of investment in the solar sector by 2030. As an action-oriented organization, ISA intends to bring together countries with rich solar potential to aggregate demand and realize the economy of scale, resulting in reduction in prices of solar applications, facilitating deployment of existing solar technologies at scale, and promoting collaborative solar R&D and capacity. As of November 15, 2018, as it has been said, the ISA framework agreement was signed by 71 countries, with 48 having deposited instruments of ratification. Japan is the recent one. See, ISA was considered for enhancing solar footprints in ISA member countries. Pacific Island countries are also member countries of ISA. As per the data available, Pacific Island countries are dealing with following problems so far as energy sector is concerned. No access to electricity to most of their population, lack of transmission system or efficient transmission system, lack of availability of power for irrigation, power availability at higher cost due to power generation through diesel, no major industries due to lack of sufficient power availability. ISA has launched 5 programs as of now to facilitate and assist ISA countries in developing solar roadmaps of such countries which are struggling with these issues. Scaling solar application for agriculture use, scaling affordable finance, scaling solar mini-grids, which is very relevant to the Pacific Islands, scaling solar rooftop program, and scaling e-mobility and storage. ISA has been working on understanding the need of solar projects and programs in each of the ISA countries, specifically Pacific Island countries, in close association with the national focal points of these countries. Accordingly, ISA has requested all the ISA countries to submit their country demand for solar pumping system, mini-grids, and solar rooftop systems by the end of this December 2018. Till now, more than 15 countries have submitted their demands of solar pumps, out of which 4 are Pacific Island countries, with demand of more than 10,300. 9 other countries have submitted their demand for solar mini-grids and solar rooftop, out of which 4 are Pacific Island countries with cumulative capacity of more than 65 megawatt. As of now, ISA is focusing on decentralized solar solutions with scaling up target to reduce the cost of the systems. ISA will shortly be issuing a price exploratory international competitive bid for more than 500,000 solar pumping systems, which will not be mandatory for countries to accept, but have an option to accept. This bid will supply, install, and operational and maintenance of solar water pumping system for 5 years and international specification. The another major program of ISA is capacity building of the countries, and through the ISA Star C centers developed in each country. Presently, training of master trainers program is undergoing in National Institute of Solar Energy, which is also funded by the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, in which 3 batches of 71 engineers from ISA member countries participated, including Pacific Islands like Kiribati have completed. Total 500 master trainers will be trained. Potential assessment is the ongoing process through prevailing policies, regulations, and ongoing solar programs within the countries. Most of these Pacific Island countries do not have a separate solar policy or mission of their own, but almost all are inclined to achieve the national determined commitments, and the multilateral financial partners of ISA will play an important role in it. The Asian Development Bank is the financial partner of International Solar Alliance, and in their annual work, the annual every year which they do is in Fiji, and we are working very closely to set up this Star C Center in Fiji. So we are working with this Fiji government. specifically with your forum, and also with ADB to establish this center. And likewise, we will go ahead on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention on the International Solar Alliance. I'm also delighted that we're joined by a representative from the United Nations Office of South-South Cooperation. And so Mr. Xiaohua Zhang will give us an overview of the actions of that office and their execution of the fund.
Thank you very much, James. Good afternoon, colleagues. And it's really my great pleasure to attend this important event that demonstrates how South-South cooperation can work. I would like to first express my great sincere thanks and extend a warm welcome to Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and valuable partners. The United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation is delighted to be part of this event to showcase the project being implemented by the UNDP in collaboration with the Pacific Island Development Forum and the solar heads of the states in 11 Pacific Island nations. And thank you very much for inviting us to share our thoughts. The Indian UN Fund is at an exciting stage right now. We have 16 million contribution in total, and we have 28 approved projects with a total amount of $8.5 million and partnership with 29 countries. We have a pipeline of 8 million and advancement of the 17 SDGs within 18 months. And partnership has been forged with 4 landlocked developing countries, 20 small island developing countries, and 11 least developed countries. The Indian UN Fund is an illustration of what a steadfast commitment to the South-South principles and shared prosperity can achieve in the Global South, with impeccable development and lasting partnership within the UN system. The Indian Fund supports demand for development related to activities from the governments of the Global South with focus on LDC and the Cs. It promotes the South-South principles like mutual benefit, national ownership, vulnerable, voluntary and non-conditional partnership, equality, and the complement to the North and the South cooperation. The United Nations system with a collaborative framework to promote Southern perspective, advisory services, facilities, and operational expertise on South-South cooperation presents unique and added value to the implementation of the funds. Through the Indian UN Development Partnership Fund, India continued to lead by example with her involvement in renewable energy and climate resilience project. Let me highlight is in line with the leadership role India is expected to play in climate change negotiation here at the COP24 and in forthcoming UN Climate Summit in 2019. UN Office for South-South Cooperation is proud to be Secretariat and Fund Manager of the Indian UN Fund. We value our partnership and engagement with member states, UN agencies, intergovernmental agencies, civil society to facilitate and promote the South-South cooperation effort in the area of renewable energy, climate resilience, and natural disaster preparedness. I speak for the UN Office for South-South Cooperation team when I extend my thanks and wish you all the good luck for the successful implementation of this Indian UN Fund project. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zhang, for that. We have one final speaker who is joining us from a different group of islands, but the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States plays a very similar role in many ways to the Pacific Island Development Forum. They have 10 members, and we are delighted that we've also signed an MOU with them to complete a similar project. So we'll have a brief introduction to that project from Ms. Norma Cherry-Fevrier representing the OECS.
Thanks, James, and good afternoon, everyone.
The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is an intergovernmental organization in the Eastern Caribbean, and we have 10 member states here on the slide, and you can see a graphic there of our region. Solar energy at the OECS level. The OECS's work on environment stems from the revised Treaty of Basse and also from the St. George's Declaration of Principles for Environmental Sustainability in the OECS. And these speak to managing and conserving energy to ensure sustainability, efficiency, and cost effectiveness. The use of solar energy is supportive of our goals in the region, and the department within which I work, the Environmental Sustainability Cluster, was set up in 2016 and includes a program on sustainable energy. So in 2018, an MOU was signed between the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and SHOS, and this MOU is aimed at supporting the vision of the OECS for a sustainable future and to demonstrate the commitment of the leadership of the OECS to address global climate change and reduce the reliance on fossil fuels. The SHOS has already installed the first solar system on the Governor General's residence in St. Lucia, as you heard from James earlier, and the 5.4 kilowatt grid-tied system will save 100 tons of carbon and save the government roughly US $150,000 in its lifetime. The MOU will enable the OECS and SHOS to work collaboratively to develop and implement a regional strategy that seeks to generate public savings through the installation of solar PV power systems on key government buildings in the member states. And the MOU also formalizes a framework of cooperation and facilitates collaboration between the OECS and SHOS. And just a quote here from our Director General, Dr. Didicus Jules. At the signing, he stated, and I quote, "This MOU with Solar Head of State supports the mission of the OECS Commission to contribute to the sustainable development of its member states by assisting them to maximize the benefits from their collective space." Now, the SHOS's work supports the OECS's Sustainable Energy Program and distributed generation, as sustainable energy has been identified as a key area in the OECS's growth and development strategy, which charts the way forward for the attainment of a single financial, economic, and social space for the sub-region. The key objectives in the OECS are energy policy support and harmonization, mainstreaming sustainable energy in sectors, and the creation of synergies and nexuses between energy and other development areas. Now, although the project is still at its early stage, several benefits have been envisaged, and these include we believe that once the buildings are equipped with these solar technologies, this will catalyze interest and raise visibility on the use of solar energy in the OECS region. These buildings will also serve as champions of the use of solar energy. We also see this project as a means of addressing a challenge at the regional level that requires our collaboration on a regional scale. And we also need to examine how solar and distributed generation can support climate action. The project also aligns nicely as part of broader sustainable cities initiatives. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I thank you. Up there, I am sharing the contact of the head of our Sustainable Energy Unit. So if you need any, further clarification on the work that we're doing in the region, she could easily be contacted at the following email address. And thanks again for inviting us to participate.
Thank you very much, Norma, for joining us twice today in the Pacific Island Pavilion for two separate events. We really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, for attending, and again, all of the panel for being here. Before we finish, are there any questions from the audience or any points? Okay, if we do have a few questions. I know that Rajesh, you have to leave now. He's a very busy negotiator for the delegation of India, so thank you very much for joining us, and we'll excuse you before we go into the questions.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move over to this microphone and use it as a roving mic. Did we have some questions or points?
So thank you so much for your presentations. Actually, I'm a solar energy engineer. And my question is, I'm really pro solar energy, but the question is, if we really can foster the implementation of solar energy so it becomes the dominant source of energy in the future, in the soon future, hopefully, do we also tackle the problem of electronic waste and recycling of solar energy components like batteries and solar modules or not?
I'll make a brief statement on that myself and then ask the panel for their points. I completely agree that electronic waste is something that for many small island communities has been overlooked. Most solar panels have a lifespan of between 20 and 30 years. Batteries, on the other hand, have a lifespan between 8 and 15 years, depending on the type. So that is a big issue in many islands that hasn't been covered. And I think part of that might be that renewable energy installation projects is a lot more sexy and attractive than the waste end. So I would say that our organization is guilty of not thinking enough of that, and it's definitely something that we want to research more and work out ways of dealing with more. Thank you very much for bringing up that point. Do we have any comments from the panel?
Yes, I would just comment that this is actually a point that's been raised in several in relation to several projects of solarization across the Pacific Islands, and particularly because of the island conditions, the waste component of it is becoming even critical. I think this is one of the elements that will be addressed in the more complete project document that we are in the process of finalizing with UNDP. And we are aware that UNDP is considering for us to actually look at the options in relation to managing waste and how could that be done. Keeping in mind that this is a project that is limited in scope, so it's a very, very limited in scope in terms of having a head of state or a building or the residence of a president that are solarized. So it's not a major issue, but it is something that needs to be incorporated into the future, into the planning in relation to all solar programs that will go more extensively. This is more a demonstration project, but this is a point that I think pretty much all the engineers working on the solar programs actually are going to focus on, and it's going to be part probably of the risk assessment that we will need to put into the final project document with UNDP. Yeah.
Yes, thanks for your question. The OECS Commission recently has been discussing the e-waste issue because we recognize in the region there is no actual policy on e-waste. So one of the first actions we will be looking at on the e-waste issue is to develop a policy and then to do further work.
Thank you very much for the question. Do we have some other questions?
Thank you. My question was, we've heard about the panels being opened up and extended to the heads of state. What about the developing island nations? Is there a possibility to partner this up with the private sector?
Over to François on that one to start, and I can add anything after.
Oh, really? Or you want to start and I can
Okay, I'll start if you want. So I think for these projects, we are looking at partnering with the private sector. A big part of our mission as an NGO is working with various private sector organizations, because for any shift in renewable energy, it's got to be both governments, utilities, private sector organizations, and non-profits do have a role in that in many island countries as well. So as in many areas, those organizations do need to work more closely together. We have, obviously these projects will actually be installed where possible from local installation companies. We'll go through the UNDP procurement processes for this specific project, but we'll be encouraging the local private sector to be involved. And we're also involving private sector manufacturers, including, as mentioned in the video, Solaria, panel manufacturer, Enphase Energy, microinverters, to be involved in the project as well.
I don't think there's anything for me to add, but yes, the idea is that the private sector, the local private sector for each of the projects will be invited to actually bid on the programs. And I think, like in the case of Fiji, for example, we know we already have the equivalent of 8 or 9 companies that could actually bid for the overall installation. And if you remember the video on Jamaica was actually a Jamaican-based company that was actually doing the installation and being quite proud of doing this for the Prime Minister's office, yes. So yes, the private sector will definitely be involved.
Thank you for the question. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Do we have any other questions or points on the project? Panel? No. In that case, thank you all very much for being here, and we'll be around afterwards if anyone wants to talk about anything. But thank you very much for coming, and thank you to the Pacific Island Pavilion for hosting us twice today.